You knew you were in a special, unique environment. Everybody was creative, everybody was artistic, everybody came from so many different places. I mean, it was the reason I wanted to get off of Staten Island and go to high school in the city.
Yo, Munir. Creativity. The happiest guys on the internet. What's going on, brother? Yo, Munir. Yo, Rob.
Yo, Munir.
How you doing?
Yo, Heather.
Hey.
Oh, amazing. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, Munir.
I was just saying it's wonderful to see Heather in the room with us today.
Amazing. I'm really thrilled about this episode.
Here.
As you should be. No, that's not how we welcome our guests, is it?
Oh, Rob, this is going to be a long one.
It is. She's used to it. Going on. What's the math?
You're not allowed to
share
say.
the math.
You're not allowed to say. No, keep that quiet. Keep it rolling.
God bless. Well, welcome to Yo Munir, a show celebrating practice and creativity, hosted by the happiest guys on the internet. I'm Rob Haddad, a former producer and director who spent his career in sports, media, and technology.
And I'm Munir Haddad, Rob's brother, co-founder and CEO of international award-winning advertising agency Kiosk, and a strong proponent of stakeholder capitalism. And I'm really happy that we have a guest, Rob. Who do we have in the room with us?
Indeed. Staten Island's own Heather Brown. Heather, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I have a bio here.
Okay.
Heather
It's a
Brown.
good time to read the bio, Rob.
Heather Brown is a passionate educator, director, and mentor who has spent over 23 years inspiring students through theater and health at Staten Island Technical High School, one of New York's top-ranked schools. She also serves as activities coordinator, where she brings school spirit to life by organizing events such as Wellness Week, prom, homecoming, Spirit Week, holiday celebrations, and the senior trip to Disney. I am about to enroll. A proud graduate of the esteemed LaGuardia High School's drama program, Heather continued her artistic training at the University of Michigan. What? Earning her BFA from the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. She later expanded her perspective by earning a master's degree in sociology from the College of Staten Island. And beyond the classroom, Heather has directed and choreographed more than 20 musical productions, including A Chorus Line, Mean Girls, Chicago, and Spamalot, and is currently directing Annie. Earlier in her career, she performed in leading roles in Wuthering Heights, 12th Night, and Dancing at Lunasa. She is also deeply committed to student wellness, having introduced initiatives such as Meditation Mondays and Gratitude Fridays to support balance and mindfulness in her school community. Heather is known for bringing energy, empathy, and creativity to everything she does, inspiring confidence and connection both on stage and in life. Heather, we are thrilled to have you on the pod.
Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here.
That bio
Yes.
is expansive.
It is.
I would love to start with understanding a little bit about your youth. Understanding that, you have a very creative background. So growing up, what was home like? Did you stay in one place? Did you play games? Give us a little snapshot into your youth.
Okay. Well, I was born actually in Manhattan on the Lower East Side, which was then Little Italy, now Chinatown. I lived there till I was about 4 or 5, and then we moved out to Staten Island. And I would say, especially as far as the creative aspect, I spent a lot of time listening to music, like Elton John, Billy Joel, Rod Stewart, and not just listening, but I would kind of like act out the songs in my basement. I think I was, MTV before there was MTV. And that is, when I look back on like my earliest influences and, what really sparked creativity in me, that's what I remember. That, and of course, a couple of key movies, I would say, growing up watching Grease, watching Annie, which like you've mentioned, I'm now directing, and just watching them like over and over and over again as a child, and also acting those out. So, that's what I did for many years growing up in Staten Island. And then when it came to high school, I decided I wanted to get off of the island. I auditioned for LaGuardia both for dance and acting, and I actually made it for both, but acting was definitely the thing that I felt way more comfortable with. That was like, kind of my thing. So I went to LaGuardia, had an amazing, amazing experience there. And then after 4 years there, I ended up at Michigan, of course, and studied theater there. Also had a very positive experience. And upon graduation, I still felt like I wasn't ready to settle down quite yet and, start pursuing my career. I decided that I was going to live abroad for a little while. And myself and two of my friends, we did a work study visa and we went to London and lived there. And that was definitely one of the coolest experiences for sure that I've ever had. I mean, we were living the life there for sure. Um, I was seeing theater once a week for like $20, which was awesome. You don't get to do that here in New York, so that was very nice. And also just, exploring the city and just being so far from home and kind of at that age, just getting comfortable and having a great time. So no complaints about that. But of course, the work visa was up after about 6 months, so I had to come home. And that was okay. I'm lucky enough to come from a very loving and supportive family, and just kind of going back to the whole, what you mentioned about that environment. My parents were always very supportive of me wanting to pursue a career in acting, or whatever level I wanted to do it at. If it was just at the college level, if it was just in high school and doing little, shows in middle school, they were okay with that. But when I told them this is something I really wanted to pursue, never once did they say, "Oh, how are you going to make a living? You're not going to be able to support yourself." There was really none of that at any point, which was very nice. So after London, I started teaching at a middle school for 2 years, the middle school that I attended. And my drama teacher from when I was there as a kid happened to be retiring. She heard that I was back from London. And so I kind of just walked into that position, which was fun. Middle school is definitely an interesting, interesting age, to say the least. So I did that for 2 years, but during that second year, I kind of knew that I wanted to go out to LA and I wanted to actually give it a shot. So I spent that whole second year just kind of, saving up and planning. And my best friend and I packed up our car, drove cross country, and we did the whole LA thing for a little while, which was also a whole different experience. Go ahead, you were going to ask something?
No, I didn't think about this when I drafted the questions for today. You going to London would have meant maybe the first time in a very long time that you weren't auditioning or performing on a regular basis. Is that right? Was that during your time there, had you taken a break for 6 months from performing?
Did, and I was okay with that. I kind of knew it was going to be temporary. I could only be there for a few months. Like I said, I kind of moved out there with some friends, and so I was just ready to move on from that for a little bit, just kind of hit the pause button. Like I said, I was still sort of in that world by going to see some amazing theater. Just some of the greats. I remember seeing Sir Ian McKellen and Waiting for Godot, and just really, really cool opportunities. So I kind of just like, kept that in my world a little bit. But yeah, it was a little bit of a respite from acting and auditioning, performing.
I
Was that
guess
a proof point to yourself that, "Hey, I really want this"? Did you go
mm,
and say, "Oh, I need to get that back"?
Yeah, I think I always kind of knew I would go back to it. I wasn't really concerned about that, not at that point anyway. And I really didn't know what the future held. I didn't know that I was going to be in LA at that point. I knew I was going to move back home. I kind of saw that as my last hurrah after college. Like, okay, this is kind of extending the whole college experience a little bit, giving me another 6 to 8 months. So I wasn't ever worried about it, but for sure, I still felt like I had it in me, and definitely when I came home, I was ready to now kind of, buckle down and get into it.
I think, at least, I certainly look at acting as um, as something to aspire to. I grew up acting at school and summer theater, but never considered it as something that I could do professionally or more than a hobby. That was something that you identified at a young age, that not only did you want to pursue it, you wanted to pursue it at the highest level you could, which was auditioning for LaGuardia. Can you share a little bit about that experience and what LaGuardia was like? We knew LaGuardia from fame,
Sure.
right? So we had
Hmm.
our own perception of what LaGuardia was like. Can you share a little bit about how that either met your expectations, exceeded, or maybe
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just to start off, it far exceeded my expectations. My sister had gone there, so she's 4 years older than me, so she was just graduating as I was starting. So I kind of already, she was sort of paving that path for me. I didn't have any hesitation about the 2 hour trek into the city each day. I mean, that was not easy, but, I saw that she did it and she was fine and she never really complained about it. So I was on board with that. I actually can remember being at her graduation and they broke out in song, just like they did in the movie. And I was like, oh, this is it. Like, Nirvana. Like I'm ready. I am all in, let's do this. And I think the best part about it, honestly, were the kids that I was there with. Of course, there were great teachers and great opportunities. I mean, we did acting for 4 periods a day. We had all of our regular classes, and then we had 4 periods a day of acting. So it was intense, but I loved every minute of it. And just the people and the atmosphere. And, of course, we weren't dancing on the cafeteria tables every day like they were in Fame. But
Not
I will
every
say
day,
there,
but
not every day, once a month. But there were moments like that. There were moments that were definitely reminiscent of the movie and the show. I also think because we weren't that far removed from it, right? Now the kids that go to LaGuardia, so long ago, right? They probably haven't even seen it. But for us, it wasn't that far removed. So yeah, we kind of like made those little moments happen, and they weren't always within the school. I can remember times where it would be after an event or after a show or something, and we were all getting on the train, and we would come up with a plan like, okay, we're going to get on and pretend that we don't know each other. And then, one by one, we'll start, like reconnecting or whatever. And there would be like 30 of us that get on one car. And, for a stop or so, we would just like be in our own world. And then, one person would walk up to me and say, Heather, is that you? Oh my God. And then like the next person and the next person and the next person. And like the people that were just riding the subway that day were looking at us like, really, guys, really? But that kind of, we did that kind of silly stuff all the time. And it was just this atmosphere, like you knew you were in a special, unique environment. Everybody was creative, everybody was artistic, everybody came from so many different places. I mean, it was the reason I wanted to get off of Staten Island and go to high school in the city. My closest friends were from uptown, from the Bronx, from Brooklyn, all over the place. And I really appreciated that. And there were so many different backgrounds represented there. And it was just so cool. It was just such a cool place to be. I still am, my closest friends are still my friends from high school. We've remained in touch and everybody's kind of living all over the country. But we just had this connection and we were really like a family. And it was awesome. It was awesome.
Amazing. I immediately connect to one of the parties you invited me to. We were at Michigan, but we were both back home in New York, and I got to go to one of Heather's high school parties, and and to be in the presence of like-minded creatives, which it might be a a nice way to phrase um, group of theater kids, as we might
Yes.
say today, which I think I had this reluctance to admit or embrace or really go all in on a certain type. I was a bit of a chameleon in high school where I was on the football team, I was in the marching band. Even at Michigan, I was in a sporty fraternity and the marching band, which were kind of diametrically opposed to each other. But what it meant was I didn't actually test myself on trying something with depth. And so I think
Mhm.
that's my admiration for people that do comes from the fact that I did not. And
Mm.
so I'm curious about if there was a time where you felt like you were going all in and either were uncomfortable or came up with this, I can do this and it's okay if I stop now. But if there was a moment where you realized you were one, really good at this because you had invested time, but two, also okay with the fact that you don't need to pursue this as a lifelong career.
Yeah, I think I always knew that if it didn't work out or if I changed my mind at any point, that I would be okay. I had friends. I'm really not trying to name drop right now, but one of my closest friends in high school was Sarah Paulson. And we had we were very similar in our acting styles and like the opportunities that we were given. Um, but we had two very different views on our future. And for me, I just always knew like I wanted to try it, but I also knew I'd be okay. I would find something else. I always wanted a family, I knew that was going to be part of the future as well. And then I look at, not just Sarah, but some of the other people, that some of my friends at school, and that was it for them. They were singularly focused and, they just kind of knew that this was the only path that they ever wanted to pursue. And that's fine. I mean, look, it worked out for her really well. you know, she's doing more than okay for herself. But I guess because of that, I could kind of jump in and not be afraid. I just knew that it was like a fun little adventure. And as much as I wanted to do it, I wasn't scared of what was going to happen if I couldn't do it. Um, as far as the point at which I realized, okay, I'm good. So, I mentioned being out in LA. And I was very fortunate because when I got out there, I already had a network of friends actually from LaGuardia that had moved out there already. And they were there maybe a year or two before me. So by the time I got out there, they were able to show me the ropes. And, I found an apartment right away and I was auditioning, very early on. The first thing I auditioned for, I ended up booking. It was some commercial. Yeah, it was fun, It was like, okay, I could do this. But what I realized fairly quickly, and I didn't necessarily stop right away, but I did know fairly quickly that, this isn't necessarily for me. I kind of need a little bit more structure. I didn't love the idea of waking up every day and not knowing what the day held for me. Because that really is the life of an actor out there when you're auditioning. You kind of just hear from your agent, or sometimes even before you have an agent, you're kind of figuring it out on your own. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go drive an hour outside of LA, to go to an audition. And then I've got a different audition across town at this time. And, you're sitting around and, it's just, I don't know. When what I really enjoyed about performing was being on the stage. And that's not the life out in LA. You're busting your butt to try to get sometimes even the smallest of parts, and you're competing with so many other people for, one line in, in some medical drama or whatever. And you're like, what is going on here? Especially my background was on the stage, and you mentioned some of the roles that I played and shows that I was a part of, and I will proudly say I had big roles, and I feel like I played them well. And then I went from that to, God, I really hope I get this one line in this whatever. And it just was like, you know what? I don't think this is for me. Um, I also like the stability of knowing where your next paycheck comes from, and I didn't want to have to. I'm not like a risk taker when it comes to things like that. So I didn't want to have to worry about that every single day. And there's no end in sight, right? There's like, you don't know what the timeline should be. Um, I'm sure I was out there for 2 years, and I'm sure I probably stayed a little bit longer out of this sense of obligation. Like, I don't want to let down my parents. Everybody back home knows that I'm out here. There was a little bit of that, even though I knew that they would be fine with whatever happened and they'd be happy to have me back home. So I knew that, and that made it easier for me, but I think I stayed a little bit longer just to kind of see, all right, let's give it a shot. Let's see what ends up happening. Let's not run back home right away. But honestly, by the time those 2 years had passed, and it was also a phase of my life, I had just gotten engaged and I was ready to get married and settle down. And we were kind of figuring out, do we want to start our married life in Los Angeles away from, all of our family? We both come from big Italian families, and, that we were very close with them. That meant a lot to us. And as the more we talked about it, we were just like, and it was really my decision. I think he would have stayed. He was digging the whole LA lifestyle, let's hang out at the beach, let's drive up the coast. He definitely could have done that for a few more years for sure. But
Sorry,
once
Vinny.
yeah, it's all good. But once I kind of decided, that I was ready to go back, it was really a no-brainer. And I actually kind of continued the charade, I guess, a little bit longer once I got back to New York. I think it made the transition easier for me, telling myself and everybody else, like, I'm going to still, give it a shot. New York, I'm going to audition. I'm going to go back to being on the stage, and, I'll see what New York has to offer. And that was just kind of, a lie that I was telling myself and everybody else. I think I maybe pursued it a little bit, um, once we were back home, but not with any real determination. I just kind of spoke to a couple of people. I probably sent headshots and resumes out, a few times. And then I was like, okay, I'm good. And I was okay with that. And I think even more so, like, I don't ever regret, I really don't have any regrets related to coming back. And especially once I landed this career as a teacher and I got to continue to be involved and still be, creative and still get to now direct shows, which I had no experience with whatsoever. That was a whole new world for me. Um, but that, which we can obviously get into a little bit more, but that has been extremely, extremely rewarding for me. So I'm just grateful that I don't really have any regrets as far as what I did. I gave it a shot. It was fun, and here I am.
Does it help you now that you are directing to talk to your students about your process, how you bring shows to life, how they bring characters to life, how they might set their own expectations up? Talk to us about how it's happening.
Yeah, sure. Yes, I mean, I still get to use all of my experience as an actor. We're talking about 8 years of acting training, between the high school experience and the college experience. And so, of course, I carry all of that with me. Um, my students, it's a little bit of a different situation because we are specialized high school. It's a very competitive school. They have to take a test to get in. So it's very academically focused. So I don't really have kids that are looking to pursue this as a career. But actually, for that reason, I really kind of love it because, so much of what they do is, again, academic based, and they put so much pressure on themselves, and they also have a lot of pressure from home. And most of my kids are coming from households where, perhaps the arts aren't really a priority and certainly not encouraged to go into as a career. So that doesn't really come up too often. I mean, in the 23 years I've been teaching there, I have had a handful of students that have gone on to actually make a career of it, or at least for a
Wow.
couple of years. Yeah, yeah, very cool stuff. I had somebody who worked on the Disney cruise lines for a little while.
Yeah.
I have somebody who's, has been traveling the world performing, somebody else who's made a few movies. So that has been really nice to see. But the overwhelming majority of them are going on to be really impressive, like engineers and architects and doctors and, all this other cool stuff. But while they're there, and again, that's what makes it so rewarding for me because they are looking for an outlet, they're looking for an opportunity to be creative and, to step outside of their comfort zone a little bit and try something. And again, if they're not getting that encouragement at home, I really feel like, I'm valued in their life because I am the person in the building who gets to be like, hey guys, it's okay. Like, you can come into theater class and you don't have to worry about math and science and all that other stuff. And we could just like be fun and be creative and use our imaginations. And they're like, really? So some of them are all in. And then others, so my theater class is an elective class for seniors. And while I do get some of the theater kids, I get a lot of kids that are just placed in that class and have zero interest in performing. And those are my favorites because I watch them go from, the first day looking at me like, oh God, I can't believe I'm here. They want to go running to their guidance counselor as fast as possible to see if they can transfer out somehow. And then by the end of the year, and I am not exaggerating, I cannot tell you how many times this happens. They're like, are we going to act again? Like, when are we going to do another performance? Like, they love it. They love it. And I have had kids that by the end of the year were like, I'm thinking of minoring in acting, in college,
Wow.
or I want to do stage managing or something related to, things that we discuss in class. And it's so much fun for me to watch that happen. So I have those kids, and then I have the kids that I get to direct in the shows. And those are like, the theater kids, the kids that really love it and come back year after year and really want to be a big part of that. And of course, I, connect with those kids and I get to share my background and sort of, all the training that I've had.
I mean, we see this. You get corporate events where you're bringing in like a second city, or you're bringing in an improv group to teach about extemporaneous teaching, collaboration. Yes, and there are. I mean,
Mhm.
one of my clients in higher education has a course on improvisation from a very prestigious graduate school of business, and so you know, public speaking. So I wonder,
Right.
do the kids does the penny drop for them when they're yeah.
Yeah, it definitely does. Sometimes it takes a little while to get there. My class, I try to break it up because I am sensitive to the fact that not all of the kids are going to enjoy performing, even though in the end, most of them do. I, try to break up the class a little bit where we will do a couple of performances throughout the year. But a lot of it is like, other stuff. We do a unit on like the greatest directors of all time. We do a unit on, we just finished up our unit on the greatest TV shows of all time. And I assign each student a different TV show and they have to watch a couple of episodes and, do a PowerPoint presentation on it or whatever. We do a whole thing on the awards season, so the Golden Globes and the Oscars and all that other stuff. So it kind of breaks up the year a little bit. So they do, I just had a student tell me the other day, Miss Brown, I've learned so much. I feel so much more cultured now after this class. And she referenced a Modern Family episode that she was just watching, and they were talking about their dog Stella that they lost. And Cam said he felt like Marlon Brando yelling Stella, Stella, and she's like, I got it. The first time I watched that episode, I didn't get it, but now that we learned about Marlon Brando, I understood. And I was like, thank you. That's kind of the point. I'm not expecting you all to go out and end up being actors, but this is the kind of stuff, and a lot of them are coming from there. A lot of them are first generation here. They have, their parents have immigrated here from other countries. So they're not growing up with our, cultural
Right.
references. So they're learning a lot of that in my class. But as far as being able to apply some of those skills, so another example is I do this project with them that we're working on right now, and it's a marketing project for the spring musical that we do each year. So, I always tell them the story. We were doing the show 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee many years ago. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
Huh.
hilarious show. It's actually playing right now off Broadway, and I just went to see it not too long ago. It's excellent. But I was really excited. The kids were great and we were ready to go, and it was opening night. And just before the house lights came down, I kind of made the mistake of, peeking over my shoulder to see how full the house was. And I was devastated because there was hardly anybody there. This particular show, even more so than other shows, has a really small cast. It has a really small pit as far as the band goes. So not a lot of students involved, and that really impacted us. And I was so disappointed for the kids, because they worked so hard and they had done such a good job. And I was just like, oh man, and it's a comedy. You need people there to laugh. So I kind of swore in that moment that I would never let that happen again. And the following year, I started this spring musical marketing project. And I made it a competition because knowing my students, they'll rise to the occasion if there's a competition, if there's a competitive aspect involved. And so I break them up into groups. And not only are they competing against the other groups in their class, but they're competing against the other classes. I teach three theater arts classes. And they have to come up with creative ideas to promote and market the show. And they have learned an incredible skill set from it. My kids are going into local businesses and asking to sit down with the manager and, explaining what we're doing and creating a flyer for it. And, they're reaching out to local newspapers and, talking to people there. Can you come and take pictures of our kids? Or, well, can we advertise in your newspaper? And they come up with such creative ideas, and that's so much fun for me too. I'm like, okay, yeah, take it and run with it. So that's just, one more example. I'm like, all right, you don't have to be an actor, but maybe you're going to go into PR, maybe you're going to go into marketing, or just, be a business owner one day. And, these are all things that'll hopefully come in handy.
Well, Rob and I talk about that all the time. I mean, storytelling is a part of any role. You have to be able you may have the best idea in the world, but if you can't communicate what your idea is in an effective manner, that idea is lost. And so to teach those kids the capacity to take their ideas and translate them and have the confidence to then speak to somebody about them that's gold. Thank you.
I think in addition to that, you talk about your 8 years of expertise, your training. What I also hear is this amazing gift that you've given students, which is this safe space to really open up and be more of themselves than maybe they
Mhm.
are in math, or
Mhm.
their core curriculum, as well as the permission to play.
Mm.
And I hear a lot about your childhood describing, mimicking Grease and doing songs and dances in the basement of your house, and giving them that same gift of play that they might not have ever had growing up.
Yeah, and, the other thing about it is they really are so stressed, in every other capacity of their life, honestly. They just, from the minute they get into our school, they're already looking ahead at which Ivy League school they're going to get into, and trying to check off all the boxes of what they can do to get there. And so they are overwhelmed with extracurricular activities, some of which they maybe are only doing because they feel like they have to, so that when they come to me and they're in the show, you see, like, there's just this relief, right? This just sense of like, okay, I can put all of that aside. I can forget about all of that for a little while, and just have fun. And so, yeah, when I say I'm grateful for what I get to do and how rewarding it is, it could be rewarding to be a theater teacher anywhere. But I think specifically for my group of students, I just see them light up. I see all of that stress kind of disappear for a little while. And yeah, I feel very lucky to be able to facilitate that.
Amazing. We're both children of immigrants, Munir and I, and we have recently, since we started Yo Munir, been on a mission to celebrate creativity and now adding practice to it, because practice is such an important part of creativity. I sometimes feel maybe guilty encouraging people to practice creativity. I've had to kind of work on that and embracing the importance of creativity in one's life, even if you're not pursuing it as a career. And I don't know if either of you have thoughts on that, and whether or not I should feel guilty, because it's like, hey, being academic and all into your studies probably is a good thing too, no?
Yes, but it's not for everyone. You know, there needs to be the artists of the world. And even in, let's say, a business environment, as you were saying earlier, there need to be those creative people there. So I think it's okay. I think we need to encourage it for sure.
Yes.
Don't feel guilty at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, we
Okay.
don't get advancement without those new ideas, without creative thinking, without the capacity to express ourselves, and then the culture in which we live. And the theater has been an incredible expression, as has film, an expression of our values, and then a critique on how we live together. If you think about some of the shows that we're talking about, the capacity to tell a message in a way where you can receive the message and strive for a better world to live together in. I mean, that's what the theater does for us. It's an opportunity.
Absolutely. One of the biggest things that I try to impart on my students is the importance of being a part of something that's bigger than yourself, and that's what being involved in the arts to me really is, especially like what we do, specifically putting on these shows, understanding the importance of the role that you play, whether you are, in the ensemble and you're kind of in the third line, just singing the big ensemble numbers, or if you're the lead, it doesn't matter. We're all a piece of this bigger puzzle, and just showing up for each other. I was listening to some of the coverage, last night after the game, and to me, there's a lot of overlap with sports and performing arts. And in fact, I often find that some of my best performers are also athletes. And I
That
don't just mean
explains it.
best as, yeah, yes, there you go. I don't just mean best as far as most talented, but like the kids that will consistently show up and, never miss a rehearsal and are willing to work really hard, and they're not looking at their, watches or their cell phones to figure out how soon they can get out of there. And like working well with other people, they're just used to that, and they're very disciplined. And I appreciate that, because you need actors to be disciplined. You don't want people to show up and just think like, oh, la la la, I'm here to kill a couple of hours. Like, we don't have time for that. I am very, very respectful of my students' time, because they are involved in so many things. And many of them, even though we are in Staten Island, actually 50% of our students, if not more at this point, live in Brooklyn. So they're traveling, just as I did. They have quite a trek home at the end of the night. So I don't like to keep them late. I want them to kind of like, let's get to work and let's get out of here. And by 4:30, we're out, and you still could get home before it's dark. So I need those disciplined students who are willing to show up and really understand how important it is. But yeah, I think just that idea that, you can connect with other people, and that especially for them who are on this quest to do so well academically, and it is very competitive, and they, are always kind of looking over their shoulder to see what everybody else is doing, but not necessarily in a positive way, that when
Right.
I can present this opportunity for them to collaborate in a creative environment and want to work with each other. So we have this thing, I don't know if you ever heard of it, if they had it out by you guys, but we do Sing. Have you heard of Sing?
No.
So it's in a lot of the New York City schools. It started in Brooklyn in like 1948 or something. It's been around forever. And it is a student run production. We do this every year in the fall. And it's also a competition, not just at our school, but it's always been a competition. So most schools will have a freshman, sophomore team, and then a junior team and a senior team. We're a little bit of a smaller school. So we just have the seniors and the juniors are paired up with the freshmen and sophomore, and it alternates every other year. But they write the script, they choose popular songs, but then they have to like rewrite all the lyrics, they transpose the music, they choreograph the dances, the students conduct the band. I mean, they do everything. I'm just there as the faculty advisor and to kind of, guide them, just make sure they're staying safe at rehearsal every day. But it is honestly, it is amazing to watch what these kids are able to pull off. I think, adults could learn from them, watching how well they work together, how, just like problem solving. It's not easy. I mean, it's not easy for me with experience to direct a show. And now you've got these kids who are directing their peers. So, of course, not everyone's going to be as cooperative and whatever. They don't want to hear their friend telling them what to do. But it's awesome. It's so great to watch them do this. So that takes place in the fall of our school year. And then we have like a holiday talent show that we do every year. And then the spring is dedicated to whatever show we're doing that year.
That's amazing. Wow. Munir, did you have something you wanted to read today?
Oh, I do, Rob. Thank you for reminding me. As a former artist myself, I have to get my work here though, because it disappeared on me. So that's not good. Not prepped. So this is I came to really formal acting later in life. I was 30 years old and decided that it'd be a good idea to pursue something that I had wanted to do and didn't pursue. And I went to an acting class to study because I wanted to get some grounding, and the acting class had required reading, which was one of whom was Uta Hagen. And so Uta Hagen, in Respect for Acting, says talent is an amalgam of high sensitivity, easy vulnerability, high sensory equipment, seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, tasting intensely, a vivid imagination, as well as a grip on reality, the desire to communicate one's own experience and sensations, to make one's self heard and seen. Talent alone is not enough. Character and ethics, a point of view about the world in which you live, and an education can and must be acquired and developed.
It's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful, but it's what you're doing. You are providing these students the education, the background to allow themselves to touch, taste, feel, and then express themselves. And I think that's where the connectivity of I don't know, I don't know how much of Uta Hagen you've read, but like she's very there's lots of the methods that
Yes.
occur. And to allow yourself as a high performing individual the vulnerability to feel and then the expression
Mm.
back is something that spoke to me about, particularly in the way that you're impacting those students.
Yeah, something you said stood out to me. I had a student a few years back who was one of those kids that was just kind of placed in the class. And once he got used to the idea that he was going to be there, he said to me one day, Miss Brown, I think I'm going to like this class because I want to learn how to be a good liar. I think, you can teach me how to be a good liar. And I was like, God, that's the worst reason to want to be in an acting class. But my response to him was, acting is about telling the truth. It's not at all about lying. And you mentioned vulnerability, and that really is, at the core of what actors do, is being able to tap into who they really are, and those obviously sense memory and all that other stuff, but like kind of calling upon your past experiences and not even, sometimes it's things that we haven't actually even lived yet. We haven't had that experience, but we have to kind of find something similar to figure out how to make that jump. So, yeah, when you were reading that, I was thinking about that student, and it really is about just not being afraid to be vulnerable, to kind of just put yourself out there. And I think that's why it's really exciting, because if you do it, if you allow yourself to do it, and then at the end of the performance, you realize, like, wow, that was really fun and I'm still okay. And like, they're not worried about people judging them or whatever. They just had this really amazing experience. That's nice. And that's why they keep coming back. It's an adrenaline rush. So, yeah.
You and I were talking offline about a Meisner quote that you used to memorize at LaGuardia about walking a tightrope
Yeah.
at the stage.
Yes. So I'm going to say the quote, and then, I have to, I don't know, apologize because when I hear the quote now, it makes me think I was so snobby back then. So the quote is, and this is, it's similar to this. It's something along these lines. I wish the stage was as thin as a tightrope so that no incompetent would dare walk upon it. And though it wasn't a Meisner quote, I read it in one of Meisner's books. And when I read it, being this like high school, theater person and at LaGuardia, and I just thought I was so cool. And now looking back all these years later, I, I look at that quote and I actually feel like the complete opposite is true, or I want the complete opposite to be true, because when I see my students, I don't want them to be afraid to walk out on that stage ever. I don't want anything to hold them back. I don't want them to worry about them not being talented enough and if I'm being honest, not it doesn't come naturally to all of them. I have been fortunate enough to work with many talented students. But there are a lot of kids that are just like, yeah, I'm going to give this a shot, and I love that for them. I really do. I love that they're willing to do that. And so my perspective on that quote has changed so much. And maybe in the professional world, it's a different story. And of course, you need to come and, now we see so many people that just become famous, from YouTube or social media or whatever. So maybe they should read that quote and then give it a second thought about, maybe I don't need to put myself out there and make myself famous, but whatever. But in the school setting, it's definitely, it should be a safe space for those kids.
What you're saying makes me think of Ratatouille
Okay.
in that the core theme is anyone can cook.
Ah,
And
yes.
at the end of the film, Ego, who's the notorious food critic, says, "In the past, I have made no secret of my disdain for Chef Gusteau's famous motto, 'Anyone can cook.' But I realize only now do I truly understand what he meant. Not
Mm.
everyone can become a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere."
Ah, well done. Yes,
And I've
absolutely.
always loved that. And to me, the quote that you used to recite as an arrogant theater kid was really pretentious and exclusionary, right? It was
Hmm.
not embracing the fact that a great actor can come from
Hmm.
anywhere. It was,
Yeah,
don't you dare do this if you're incompetent.
right. Right. I've
Ah,
grown. I've matured.
well, we're so many people are the beneficiary of that maturation
Oh,
because
thank
you
you.
have been a leader in the arts for the last 25 years.
Thank you. Yes, it's nice. It's a career that I can feel proud of. And, I think for a lot of people, they spend so much of their adult life seeking, the opportunity to feel like, they're valued and that they serve a purpose, excuse me. Um, and I've been blessed with that. I've had that, and it's and beyond just the directing and the teaching, the other stuff that I get to do at my school, it's like a dream come true. I mean, I run a lot of the activities, so I'm kind of like the Julie McCoy cruise director. To give a 1970s TV reference. But I get to plan all the fun stuff, so that's great. And then I also teach health to freshmen. And so I make the focus of our health class all about, mental health and well being. And as you mentioned in the bio, we do a lot of meditation and we focus on gratitude. And Yeah, so it's like it's coming at me from all ends, I get to do all of that.
Well, thank you for sharing that gift with your students and for sharing your time and experience and story with us. It
Oh,
has been
thank
really
you.
great to be in your presence again.
Oh, thank you.
That leaves us with one thing. What we like to do to celebrate the theme of the show
Mhm.
is share our mixtape for the week. And the theme for our mixtape this week is, what three songs would you use in an audition about your life in high school?
Okay. Well, first off, I love this idea. I really do.
Thank you.
I'm all about the mixtapes. Yeah, I remember my dad coming to pick me up at Michigan, actually, and we were moving all of my stuff out, and he looked at this pile of that back then it was actual tapes, right?
Of
And
course.
it said, "Dope mix number one, dope mix number two, dope mix number three." So yeah, I'm all about the mixtapes. Um, okay, so the first one's a little bit, it's cheating a little bit because I chose a song that's actually from a musical already that exists about my high school. But it is I Sing the Body Electric from Fame. And that was the song that they sang at my sister's graduation
Oh my
that,
God.
yeah, was like, "Oh my god, this is so cool. I wanna be here." We tried to do it again at my graduation. It didn't quite take off, but a few of us kinda, clapped and sang along a little bit. So that would be my first one.
Wait, is that on your list? Oh my
Oh, get out of
God.
here, really? Ah, so cool. Look at that. The second one, I chose Vogue by Madonna.
Yes.
And yes,
With
because I
Usher.
have a very I have a very distinct memory of being at a dance in my freshman year at LaGuardia, and that song, I guess, had just come out, and
Oh
I
my God.
stood on the perimeter of, like, they made like one of those dance circles and watched everybody just go at it, like voguing all the dance majors, some of the theater majors too, drama majors, but mostly the dance majors, just like, so good at it. And I was like, wow, that's like, this is really cool. So, yes, so Vogue for sure. And then the last one, I chose just another popular song from high school, but I feel like it was almost like one of the anthems to my 4 years there, and that was Tribe Called Quest Scenario.
Let's go. Yes.
I loved Tribe Called Quest in high school and college and beyond. And so it's just one of those songs that, like, as soon as I hear it, it just immediately brings me back to like 1992. So,
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that with us. I am fired up. Munir, what do you got for us?
Well, I had a different brief, Rob. I thought we were going with what we would sing if we were singing with musicals, but I Sing the Body
Oh,
Electric was on my list. I'm gonna go skip that one. I have others.
oh, well,
Um,
share.
no,
It's
I'm gonna
okay.
share. Don't worry. I'm not bowed or pushed aside. Um, for me, that song was something that we sang in school. Another one was "What Comes Next," Jonathan Groff, and the reason is that's from Hamilton. No small parts. You talked about, Heather, people in like the third row, and here's a person who had a role, who minor role in the play, but everybody talks about. And the concept of like what comes next is also something that was relevant and prescient and important, and still is. That idea of like what could come next. With a little bit of luck from My Fair Lady. Why? Because in the third grade, we put My Fair Lady on as a musical when I was in third grade, and that started my love of theater and I was Alfie Doolittle. And, in life, you need just a little bit of luck. So that one's on my list. And then finally, we are going with um, Seasons of Love, Rent, just because of the importance of love. And I just think that song's great. My family sings that song, and it was not part of my high school, though.
Wow.
Nice.
Well,
Very
thank
nice.
you. Thank you for sharing that. And I almost had, I have often walked
See
down
there?
this street before, but I've never had my feet above the ground before. I almost chose On the Street Where You Live. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
There
you.
you have it.
But I did not.
But you did not.
What I did choose, however, my list is on my phone, guys. Sorry.
Oh, well,
I'm
that's very
slacking.
modern of you, though.
Yeah, yeah. And now I gotta do
E
this now too,
except for the fact
because
that you can no longer read.
that's the problem. It was always a
Yeah,
struggle,
I
to be
get it.
fair. Um, Talk to Me from Bye Bye Birdie. I was Conrad Birdie my junior year of high school. Even though that
Nice.
is not a song that Conrad sings, I was always envious of Cameron Kelly because he got to sing Talk to Me. And that was my favorite song in the musical. So if I was auditioning, that would be one of the songs that I would choose to sing. Speaking of talk, Can We Talk by Tevin Campbell. Can We Talk? Absolute R&B anthem that as soon as it comes on, you have to sing it. It is just an electric song that really brings out a lot of joy in me whenever I hear it. So Can We Talk would be on that audition. And then Don't Dream It's Over by Crowded House, which I think if you started playing it, you might get the whole audience involved. And so I would want to show the breadth and depth and range of my ability to sing a sing along song that was popular in the 80s, but certainly you would sing into the 90s. So that was one that actually came on while I was thinking about this playlist. And I was like, yo, that would be so cool to sing in an audition. So I chose it.
Very nice.
Love it.
Heather, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. It's been my pleasure.